They called me in just after sunrise. A girl's body had been found near Shakti, an old mining town just west of Rostov-on-Don. Train tracks ran through the woods like steel veins, and that's where they found her. Her name was Lena Zakatnova. Age 9. When I got there, I expected a simple case, a drifter, maybe a drunk. But the moment I saw her, I knew this was different. She was laid out carefully, like someone had posed her. Clothes torn. Face bruised. Bite marks on her body. And her eyes, they had been gouged out. I stood there in the frost, my breath fogging the air, and for the first time in years, I felt something old and cold creep up my spine. The local militia had no leads. Probably a vagrant, they said. Someone passing through. But I didn't buy it. This wasn't the work of a man in a rage. It was the work of someone who enjoyed it. Someone who took his time. I didn't know it then, but this case would swallow the next 12 years of my life. And the man I was chasing? He was already hunting again. We buried Lena in silence. Her parents didn't speak. Her classmates left flowers they didn't understand. I filed the report, submitted the photos, checked every local registry, parole list, and psychiatric file I could get my hands on. But the higher-ups? They shut it down. There is no such thing as a serial killer in the Soviet Union, my captain said. This is not America. And that was that. The file was closed. No suspect. No justice. I didn't forget. 3 years passed. Then, in 1981, a boy named Larissa Tichenko was found in a meadow outside Rostov. 9 years old. Same wounds. Same mutilations. Same silence. That's when I knew he was still out there. Still choosing victims. Still hiding in plain sight. I went back to the Lena Zakatnova case. Reviewed every name. Every face. And there was one that didn't sit right with me, Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo. He lived near the crime scene. No record. Teacher. Married. Polite. Unremarkable. Too unremarkable. He claimed he never met the girl. Claimed he was at work. Claimed a lot of things. I brought it up to my captain. He waved me off. A party member, he said. Educated. Not our type. But I knew better. And Chikatilo knew I was watching. Because the next body? It showed up in a town I'd just left. He worked in a school. That's what haunted me. Andrei Chikatilo, soft-spoken, forgettable, always carrying a briefcase like it held the world's secrets. He taught literature once. But kids didn't like him. Parents complained. He was let go. Not fired, reassigned. Quietly. Without fuss. That's how it worked back then. You could do terrible things, as long as no one spoke too loudly. But the pattern continued. 1982, 3 more children dead. 1983, 6 more. The wounds told the same story. Victims left near train stations or in forests. Throats slashed. Clothes scattered. Eyes missing. Always children. Or women. Always the vulnerable. And yet still, no national warning. No public outcry. The state didn't want to admit a serial killer could exist under Soviet order. So they said it was random violence. Western hysteria. They blamed mentally ill patients, homosexuals, even a Jewish conspiracy. Anything but the truth. And Chikatilo? He moved town to town, job to job, identity to identity. Like a ghost in a red mist. I filed a request to reopen the Zakatnova file. My supervisor denied it. Do you want to lose your position? He asked. No, comrade, I said. But inside, I was already gone. Because I wasn't chasing a killer anymore. I was chasing a system that refused to see him. The morgue is colder than the forest. I stood over another body, this time a teenage girl. Same wounds. Same mutilation. Same emptiness where her eyes should have been. The coroner whispered what I already knew. This isn't rage. This is ritual. We were up to 13 victims. I pushed again for a task force. They laughed in my face. Serial killers are a Western illness, they said. You're watching too many American movies. But the patterns screamed. The wounds lined up. The travel routes connected, always near rail lines, always in wooded areas. And then something strange happened. In 1984, Chikatilo was arrested. Not for murder, for theft. He'd been caught stealing at work. Routine booking. Routine blood sample. And somehow, by miracle or mistake, he was let go. I didn't know until months later. The lab had tested his blood and ruled him out. But they made a mistake. His blood type didn't match the semen found at the crime scenes. What no one realized was that Chikatilo had a rare condition. His blood type didn't match his bodily fluids. He was guilty. But the science said otherwise. So they released him. And the killing began again. Worse this time. More bodies. More bold. The ghost had learned he couldn't be touched. Autumn 1984. Leaves turned red in Rostov. So did the streets. He was bolder now. Killing monthly. Sometimes weekly. Victims disappeared from train stations, bus stops, alleyways. Teenagers. Children. Runaways. Women too trusting of a man with a fatherly face and a quiet voice. We were finding bodies faster than we could bury them. The Soviet press said nothing. There was no public warning. No sketches. No press conferences. To acknowledge a serial killer was to admit the system had failed. But I saw the file stack grow. 30 victims. 40. Some were found stripped and mutilated. Others, scattered bones in pine woods. Almost all were missing their eyes. As if he didn't want them looking at him. We nicknamed him the Forest Phantom. Some called him the Mad Beast. But I knew who he was. Andrei Chikatilo. Still walking free. Still working odd jobs. Still hiding behind fake glasses and forged documents. He was ahead of us at every step. Because he wasn't just killing for pleasure. He was killing with confidence. And no one believed me. Not yet. But I was getting close. And he could feel it. By 1985 I was obsessed. Every unsolved case, every missing child, every anonymous body, I traced them all on a map. Red pins. Dozens of them. Each one a scream no one answered. I started calling the victims. His constellation. Each death a line. Each town a point. Each path a railway. And at the center of it all, Chikatilo. I knew it. But I had no proof. The lab still swore he wasn't a match. The party still claimed the killer had to be mentally ill, a drifter, a foreigner, anyone but a quiet Soviet teacher. Andrei was clever. He picked people no one would miss. Orphans. Runaways. Prostitutes. Children from broken homes. He preyed on the invisible. And when we did catch someone, when pressure from Moscow boiled over, they forced a confession from a factory worker with a learning disability. He hung himself in prison. The killing stopped. For a year. The party celebrated. Case closed. But I didn't celebrate. Because he hadn't stopped. He was just watching. Waiting. And in 1987, the ghost came back. Only this time, he didn't care who saw him. For a year, the forest stayed quiet. Then, as if on cue, the murders resumed. Faster. Crueler. He didn't even bother hiding the bodies anymore. A boy found by a bus station. A young woman left behind a department store. A 10-year-old girl dumped in a ravine. The media still said nothing. The party stayed silent. But we knew. By now, Chikatilo had killed over 30 people. The few of us still chasing him worked in secret. We met in stairwells. Burned notes. Shared theories under our breath. Because if we pushed too hard, we'd lose our jobs. Or worse. But we kept going. In 1990, we finally got a break. He was seen at a train station, approaching a young boy. An undercover officer spotted him. His walk. His eyes. The bag he carried, the same black leather one from the early reports. They brought him in. I was there when they handed me his file. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo. It felt like ice in my hands. But without evidence, we had to let him go. Again. Until 1 week later. They found a body. Then another. 2 more screams added to his constellation. I sat in my car outside the station that night shaking. My hands weren't just cold. They were soaked in every name I hadn't saved. November 1990. It was his bag that betrayed him. Inside, rope, a knife, lubricant, a hammer, and a small bottle of vodka. Tools of control. Of ritual. Of him. We brought him in again. This time, I didn't care what the lab said. This time, I didn't wait for orders. I sat across from him in the cold gray room. He didn't blink. Didn't sweat. His hands folded neatly in front of him like a schoolboy about to recite poetry. I laid out the photos. Body after body. Child after child. Eyes missing. Faces frozen. And for the first time in 12 years, he smiled. Not wide. Just enough to say, "You'll never understand." And then he began to talk. Not like a confession. Not like a man burdened by guilt. He spoke like a teacher. As if he was explaining his life's work. He said their eyes held his secrets. He said the blood made him feel real. He said he was born wrong. He gave us names. Details only the killer could know. He laughed at our mistakes. Corrected our timelines. By the end of the second day, he admitted to 36 murders. We weren't even halfway done. By the end of the interrogation, he'd confessed to 52 murders. 52 lives. 52 families shattered. 52 voices forever silenced by one man with a blank face and a mind full of nightmares. I remember writing their names by hand on a long sheet of butcher paper. Taping it across the walls of the interview room. One by one. He didn't look away. He corrected the spelling of one. I asked him why he stopped taking the eyes. He said, "I learned they couldn't really see me after death." He said it like a scientist. Like a man who had tested a theory and moved on. We charged him with 53 counts of murder. One didn't stick. But 52 did. He went to trial in 1992. They put him in a steel cage inside the courtroom, not for theatrics, but because the families wanted to tear him apart. He sat there, twitching, mumbling, sometimes screaming poetry or nonsense. But the truth was, he knew exactly what he had done. And he remembered every detail. We had our monster. But it didn't feel like victory. Because behind every name on that list, there was someone we failed to protect. The courtroom stank of metal, sweat, and rage. They kept him inside a steel cage, the kind used for wild animals, not for his safety, but for everyone else's. The mothers wanted him dead. The fathers wanted to do it themselves. He looked smaller in person. Gaunt. Gray. His hands shook when the lights were too bright. But not from fear. He loved the stage. When the judge read out the list of names, he nodded along. When they showed photos of the children, he smiled faintly, not at the faces, but at the memory of control. He spoke only when it suited him. Quoted Lenin. Called himself a mistake of biology. Said his urges were given by nature. The press painted him as insane. But I knew better. He was cold. Deliberate. Calculating. He wasn't sick. He was shaped, by silence, by powerlessness, by the cracks in the system he learned to crawl through. In October 1992, the verdict came. Guilty. 52 counts. Sentenced to death. As they dragged him back to his cell, he shouted, "I am a mistake. But you made me." And for the first time, no one argued. He sat on death row for 2 years. No appeals. No statements. No remorse. He just waited. Some said he went mad. Others said he never stopped planning. Even in prison, he was feared, not for what he could do, but for what he had already done. I visited once. Not for closure. Not for answers. I just wanted to see him without the mask. He didn't look at me. Didn't speak. He just stared past the bars, as if still chasing someone through the trees. On February 14, 1994, Valentine's Day, he was executed with a single bullet behind the right ear. Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo, the butcher of Rostov, was gone. But his victims? They stayed. In files. In photos. In forest paths no one walks anymore. I carried their names like scars. Their faces followed me into retirement. Justice had been done. But not fast enough. Not for Lena. Not for Larissa. Not for the 50 others. We didn't catch him in time. And the silence let him grow. Years have passed. The Soviet Union is gone. The files have yellowed. The names, once whispered in secret, now echo in documentaries and headlines. But I still remember the woods. I walk them sometimes. Not to chase ghosts, but to remind myself of what hides in silence. 52 victims. Each one should have been saved. Each one deserved more than a number in a file. We weren't just hunting a killer. We were fighting a system that refused to see him. Andrei Chikatilo didn't wear a mask. He wore a uniform. He paid his party dues. He raised a family. Taught school. Kept his head down. And he used our silence like a shield. The Rostov Ripper is gone. But I see his shadow in every case ignored, every missing child buried in bureaucracy. Because evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it smiles. And sometimes it walks past you on a train platform and disappears into the trees. The end.